All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I'm going to be talking about tariffs and the implication on our beloved business model of e-commerce and specifically dropshipping. Okay, what does this mean for us? How are we going to navigate it? How are we going to come out actually better than what we did going into it, depending on the people we surround ourselves with, the information we receive, the manufacturers that we work with, and just in general, how resourceful we can be and how good at problem solving we can be in just staying on top and pushing through, right? Now, before I dive into the video, I've been doing e-commerce for a little over 7 years now, and I have dedicated my life to this business model, and it's not going anywhere. And I have put in a lot of time and a lot of effort making tons of mistakes and sharing them with you, whether it be on YouTube, on Instagram, on any other social media platform, solely for the purpose of helping you so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did, some of them being a lot more costly than others. Now, in exchange, all that I ask is that you smash that thumbs up button because it really does help me reach more people and help more people just like you. And again, prevent you guys from making the same mistakes that I've made for the last 7 years and counting, because I make mistakes every single day. So if that sounds like a fair trade to you, all this value completely for free in exchange for just hitting that thumbs up button and considering subscribing so you could stay tapped into the content just like this that I upload all the time, that would mean the world to me. All right. Now, without further ado, let's talk about what the heck is going on, right? So recently, there has been something called this de minimis law, which basically said that any package or parcel coming in from China with a value lower than $800 could not be tariffed, or it was tariff and import fee exempt, right? Meaning that didn't really affect us dropshippers. It did affect brands that were selling singular products that cost more than $800, or D2C brands that were ordering inventory for products in bulk to the United States, but it doesn't affect us until now, right? So it's really important to understand that we are no longer exempt. It is no longer the Wild West. There is now going to be these things implemented. We don't know how long they're going to be for, how extreme it's going to be, if they're going to pull back at a certain time, or if they're going to get rid of it, exempt it. I'm just giving you the information that I've done a ton of research on, and that I've talked to every manufacturer that I know and sourcing agent that I've ever worked with, so I can get you the most accurate and real-time information possible, right? So although there might not seem like a ton of information in here, there a lot of research went in behind it, so I can break it down into bite-sized chunks for you so that you can stay in the loop as far as what is going on, okay? So again, de minimis, that's going to be gone. So now products that are lower than $800 will be subject to these tariffs and these import fees, okay? But what does that actually look like, okay? So 145% tariffs. That's on single products being shipped from China to the United States. So what does that look like, right? For a $20 product, that would be 1.45 times $20, right? Let's say the cost of goods is $10, the shipping is $10, the cost of goods is $20, the shipping is free somehow, sent off by carrier pigeon. The shipping is $19 and the product cost is $1. Doesn't matter. The total declared value of the product cost plus the shipping costs, you're going to take that, multiply by 1.45, and that is going to be the additional fee that you're going to have to pay on top of the original shipping and cost of goods fees, right? Which is a lot, and it can be really detrimental for most businesses that don't quickly adjust and adapt their supply chain, their pricing structure, etc. Okay? In addition to this, right? That's not all. It's like an infomercial, but the infomercial from hell for dropshippers. That's not all. There's also going to be a $100 import fee starting tomorrow, because today is the day before May 1st. And that is going to be on imports from shipping lines that are not private, right? So think common shipping lines like Yun Express. Whereas private lines, there are certain exemptions, which we're going to get into in a moment, right? And so moral of the story is that bare minimum, you're going to be going from a what was originally a $20, if I can correct my math, what was originally a $20 cost to get this product landed to our customer's doorstep is now going to be minimum $49, right? Because of the $20 to ship to the customer, plus the new $29 tariff. And on the high end, it can be as much as $149 when we include these $100 import fees, right? So it's either going to go from 20 to 49 or from 20 to 100. And neither of those scenarios is fun. But let's talk about how we can potentially navigate them, right? And just to, really rain on the parade, in June 1st, or on June 1st rather, that's going to allegedly and potentially go up to $200, right? Again, really tough. And you're probably really scared right now. And to be honest, I'm a little scared as well, but there's a lot of ways that we can navigate this, a lot of solutions that there are, especially temporary, like immediate measures that we can make. And honestly, I can confidently say, are not going to be as affected as I am, where I actively have products that are scaling in the United States that we're completely doing restructuring on the supply chain side and a whole other things, right? So if you're not already doing 100K a month, 200K a month, 300K a month, right? It's not that you won't get affected, but it's that you definitely won't get as affected as those who are in that significant scaling stage and phase with their brands where they have to restructure everything. You can just start from the ground up doing the right things. That all of us are very, us being brand owners that are doing multi six figures a month, that we're navigating and we're kind of the guinea pigs for you. And you can learn from us and from our mistakes. And, if I look dumb 2 weeks from now because a lot of these things change, that's fine, as long as I know that I was able to share accurate real-time information to you to help you navigate the situation properly, right? Now, let's talk about this country comparison breakdown, okay? This is courtesy of ChatGPT and a shit ton of articles that I prompted it with to make sure that we had the right information. And it's still, again, changing constantly, but this is the most accurate and real-time information that we have. And so what I did was I came up with a couple of countries that are going to be the closest contenders to China when it comes to warehousing and distributing products, not manufacturing, right? But what you may want to consider is working with a sourcing agent who is able to have products that are manufactured in China get warehoused in other countries that have lower tariff and import fee implications, such as Mexico, Taiwan, India, and Vietnam, right? There are a variety of other countries as well, including the United States, right? You can source products from the United States. The only downside is that it's not as sexy and glamorous as it sounds, right? Yeah, fast shipping, product costs are okay, whatever. The problem is when inventory runs out and those, they're warehousing it from in the United States, but that's product that's manufactured from China. Those old products that have stock in the US right now that are going to be really lucrative to sell for the time being, when it comes time to restock, they're going to go up significantly in costs. And, maybe not as much as a singular product being drop shipped from China, but it is going to go up very significantly. And so even though you might use that as a temporary solution, selling from the US is actually probably not going to be a sustainable solution unless it's from a US manufacturer, right? Very different than a US 3PL that's just warehousing products that are manufactured in China, okay? So let's get back to the chart. So in Mexico, there are currently 25% tariffs imposed. Now, this number kind of ranges between 10 and 25. It's still not quite clear and concrete, but of the most recent data and information that I've collected, it's around a 25% tariff with no import fees. So what that means is that your $20 product is actually only going to be $25 if you are housing that product in Mexico, or if it's being somehow manufactured in Mexico, which is less likely, but it could be a possibility, and you're shipping it from Mexico to China, right? Now, Taiwan, it's a 10% tariff, so it's only going to go up $2, right? You're going to go from $20 to $22. Not the end of the world, right? India, 23, Vietnam, 22. Doesn't sound very scary, right? But then when you get to China, it's very clear that if you just keep working with the same agents, the same suppliers, the same manufacturers, it is going to be pretty impossible and definitely not sustainable to be able to profit by selling cheap crap from China, simply put, right? So it goes to 149, right, pre-June, and post-June it goes to 249 if everything is carried out the way that, the Trump administration is saying that it will, and if they're abiding by the executive orders that have been placed, right? Now we all see how that's gone, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow and there's an additional exemption, but we are preparing ourselves for that not to happen, right? No more delays, no more extensions. It's coming, it's here to stay, and probably for 90 days or so until there's we'll get into all that towards the end of the video. So I hope that this is very clear. Now let's move on to the import fees, right? So the import fees are going to be from these non-private shipping lines from China, right? So rather than talking about all of that, I'm going to talk about the import fee exempt shipping lines from China and how we can avoid this at the bare minimum, right? If we can avoid this import fee, then there is still a big, I don't want to say consequence, but there's a big impact on the products that we're currently selling, but it is nowhere near as big as having to endure these import fees that are just absolutely ridiculous and just monstrous, right? And so some of these import fee express shipping lines are DHL Express, FedEx, right? International, USPS Worldwide, SF Express, or Flexport. There's a couple of other options, but these are the ones that I think I've used all of these. I've used Flexport. I've used FedEx International, DHL. I honestly, I don't even know if I've used, I must have used this. And we've used SF Express for a ton of our products. So I believe I've actually used all of these. I'd have to double check with some of my suppliers and my sourcing agents. But let's go through each of these one by one real quick together. So DHL is super fast, right? Like if you ever need a product sample, or if you want to get a sample shipped to a creator to get custom content, we almost always recommend DHL. It is going to be at a premium. It's going to be more expensive, but it's going to get there fast. Might be smelly, might be packaged like it's survived an atomic bomb, right? But those are the trade-offs for getting super fast shipping, right? And again, private shipping line, DHL. So if you do use DHL as a line, you're actually exempt from that $100 import fee, right? Definitely something to consider, especially if you're not selling a super cheap product, right? If you're selling an $80 product, then it is totally worth paying maybe an extra $15 or $20 for shipping, as opposed to $5 for like a cheaper line, if it means getting that product to them fast and saving $100 on an import fee, right? So that's DHL. For FedEx International, this also, so the main thing with the rest of these is that the handoff doesn't go to a US-based shipping line such as USPS, right? So Yun Express is a very commonly known shipping line where they do last mile tracking with USPS. And so technically you could use Yun Express. Even SF Express does that, where they'll hand it off to USPS once it gets to the United States. But it's really important that you implement a protocol with your supplier, right, with your sourcing agent, that essentially says that you don't want them to drop it off at that last mile USPS shipping. You want them to instead use their local shipping resources, right? Even if it takes a little bit longer, you need to make sure that you stay away from that import fee. Otherwise, it will quite literally completely ruin your business, right? If you continue sourcing from China and if you're only selling into the United States. Again, really important thing that we'll talk about in a second. USPS Worldwide, same thing. We talked about SF Express, right? So again, make sure that you use premium service lines only so that you avoid that USPS handoff. And you have to actually confirm a service code now. This is something that we didn't have to do. So it's just important that we have that relayed to our manufacturers and our suppliers, right? And then Flexport, right? Which is more of a private company for freight forwarding and shipping forwarding and things of that nature, okay? So I hope that makes sense so far. Now, simply put, let's talk about just how to win. How do we overcome this? Because it sounds like it's the end of the world for dropshipping, and dropshipping is dead for cheap products from China selling from China to the United States, right? And, it's not entirely false, right? We're definitely moving away from that model and we're doing things a little bit differently, right? So, number one, you want to take advantage of the lower advertising spend and the significantly less competition, not only in the United States, but also in other countries, right? When you think about it, a lot of these big companies are going to be removing their inventory of ad spend because they don't want to incur a lot of these consequences. And the barrier of entry for them to change their existing operations is a lot more difficult than starting something new with the proper foundations built, right? That's a really important thing to understand. So it might take them 3, 6, 9, 12 months to restructure their manufacturing operations, right? They might go out of business. They might decide to only sell in other countries outside the United States so that they don't have to deal with it. And it's not a terrible idea, but that gives us a ton of opportunity because in general, even if spend, kind of shifts from the United States to a lot of other countries for these direct consumer brands, the amount of spend allocated towards US consumers was so high that Facebook is set to lose about $7 billion a month. I think it was around that number the last time that I checked. If not, it was, I might be stupid. It might be more like $7 billion a day, but it's a lot of freaking money that even if they try to allocate it towards other countries, the total number, the total dollars that are spent on a daily basis are going to be significantly lower, right? Now, what does that mean in general from a supply and demand perspective? That means that it's going to drive the cost of advertising down. It's going to drive CPMs down, and it's going to give us, right, the small and medium fish, some room I can't even say medium, the small fish, some room to really be able to just thrive and to grow with significantly lower costs if we are able to, withstand some of this volatility and handle this adversity, which we know that we can, right? Now, number two, if it's not already obvious based on the conversation that we're having right now, then you want to manufacture and source products outside of China, right? Now, the manufacturing part is going to be trickier. And so the sourcing part, honestly, is going to be a lot more practical, right? Now, that could be in the United States, right? So product manufactured from China that they shipped inventory to the United States, and you could sell that inventory out for a while. But is that going to be the most sustainable solution? Maybe not, right? Now, what happens if you go to something like an Etsy supplier, right? For a custom necklace that has, whatever, some type of engraving on it, right? Working with manufacturers like that are in the United States that sell those products locally and building relationships with them where they can keep producing and where their raw materials and their costs don't increase, that could be a great option, right? Especially if you're able to source from suppliers that other dropshippers aren't really looking at, right? Everyone's looking at Alibaba, everyone's looking at AliExpress, 1088, Yuwugo, made in China, right? DHK, all of these different, traditional Chinese suppliers. But what if you went and found a US marketplace where they manufacture the product, the price isn't going to change, they don't have too much limitation on inventory and on manufacturing capabilities, and when your competition comes onto your website and they try to Google reverse image search the product to find the supplier on AliExpress, it doesn't exist there. And so they call it a day and they move on to another product and they don't bother you and they don't even attempt to compete with you from a competition perspective. So that it could be incredibly lucrative as an idea for sourcing products directly in the United States, right? But again, there is going to be a risk with sourcing products from the United States that are originally manufactured in China. Because when you run out of inventory, and you will if you follow our marketing strategies and our ad scaling strategies and all that fun stuff, then when you need to go place a new batch of inventory or purchase that or even get help essentially financing the orders through a sourcing agent, then there will be significantly higher costs incurred in the restocking of that product, right? Now, you might be like, Kyle, we're talking dropshipping here. Why are you throwing out terms like inventory or stocking up a bunch of units? And fundamentally, you have to understand that dropshipping is selling inventory that a Chinese fulfillment company and a sourcing agent fronted for you, believe it or not, right? So they bought 100 units. They took the risk of selling those products and you helping them sell them off the shelves, and you're buying it from them singularly, right? But there's still inventory held somewhere, right? And so a lot of these sourcing agents and these suppliers and these manufacturers, they do have warehousing in the United States and in these other countries as well. And if they don't, they'll be expanding to them, such as Mexico and Taiwan and all of these other countries that, again, have lower tariffs and that are import exempt, right? Import fee exempt as well. And you have to understand that they will still be willing to take the risk on ordering the inventory, and then we can go to them and sell the singular products, right? Now, they might be willing to take a smaller risk because the distance and the location between where it's being manufactured and where it's being held in a warehouse is going to be a lot further, right? Which is going to impose higher risk on them. It's going to create slightly higher costs because of the additional shipping that it takes to go from China to, let's say, Mexico and then the United States, as opposed to just China and the United States. And they're going to want to be mindful of their risk, right? Because they're assuming all the risk and we get all the benefits as drop shippers. And so they might ask for things like deposits on inventory that you want their help reserving without necessarily having to pay the entire batch, right? And so in that regard, selling smaller and cheaper and more cost-effective lightweight products, not cheap in the sense of quality, but cheap in the sense of cost. So think like a supplement that, a powder in a packet that only costs $1 or $2 to manufacture that you could sell for upwards of $40 or $50. That might not be a bad idea to actually put a deposit on some inventory, because you can get 1,000 of those for maybe $1,000 or $2,000. And if you can negotiate a 30 or 40% deposit on that, it's only a couple $100 to have this, potentially custom designed product, supplement, whatever, and then just warehouse it somewhere like Mexico, so that you don't have to pay some of those additional tariffs even on bulk imports to the United States. But even if on the bulk imports, it's going to be a little bit easier. But anyways, so I hope that makes sense. Now, number 3, which is the absolute lowest hanging fruit, is just sell outside of the United States, right? The last time I checked, and getting the exact numbers was very difficult, but we sell about 60% of our products now outside of the United States and about 40% in the United States. Now, I'm not going to lie. The US is generally the most scalable market from what I've seen, the most consistent. You can run products for a long period of time, and it could be the most profitable for certain products, right? Because US consumers love buying shit that they don't need, right? That's the easiest way to put it. And so, again, missing out on the opportunity of selling that market, it sucks, but it's life, right? It's business. We'll get through it, and it doesn't have to be forever. It could be deciding to sell outside of the US temporarily, right? Now, what additional implications come with this? Well, we have wanting to make sure that we can process payments from these other countries. So in the United States, you could have a credit card processor and you could scale to 10, 20K a day. I'm not going to say easily, because nothing is easy. You got to put in the work. If it was easy, then everyone would be doing it. But pretty straightforwardly, you could sell about 10, 20K a day in sales very profitably with just a credit card credit card processor rather, right? Now, in other countries, you might need something like Klarna, or you might need an Afterpay app. You most definitely are going to need something like a PayPal that's almost universally and globally accepted now as a dominating payment processor. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you sell in these other countries outside the United States, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and say, what types of websites do they usually buy from? Am I going to need to translate my creatives, translate my landing page? Do I need processors that are more accessible to them? And all those things might sound complicated, but you can learn how to set all of that up for your website, even if it's only targeting US customers and it's only accepting, USD from a credit card processor, and you've never translated a landing page, and you don't know how to speak another language, and you've never translated a creative. You can learn how to do all of those things within like 72 hours. And newsflash, you can get the help from a lot of AI tools that we leverage. And so don't freak out when you hear, I have to do a little bit more in order to sell effectively outside of the US, so that I can create an environment that I can scale as profitably as what I might have been or what I could have done in the United States had we not had to endure and experience these new tariffs, right? And these import fees, right? So again, try allocating your spend towards non-US countries, and you would be really, really surprised at how good some of the performance is. When you find some of those countries that are performing well, you tailor the experience around them. You'd be so surprised at how scalable they are, and more importantly, how profitable they are, right? Now, lastly, and this is kind of universal across the board, whether you're selling in other countries or in the US, raise your prices, because a lot of prices are going to be raised once this takes into effect, because it's not just going to affect us, right? Like us dropshippers, we think that we rule the world, but we don't, right? We are one business model that kind of bakes itself into hundreds of other industries and hundreds of other companies, right? Walmart's going to be affected, Target, Costco, like you name it. And the US companies and non-US companies are going to be affected when they source any type of material from China, right? And so all prices are going to raise across the board, right? And so you want to sell premium products, right? Don't sell cheap crap from China. Sell premium products and sell them at premium prices. And that price discrepancy between what you sell it for and what you get it for, including all the tariffs and all this crap, is going to be the amount of money that you can put into bettering the customer experience, scaling the brand, getting content that allows you to market the product in a way that best serves the customer, so you can ethically convince them to buy this product that you know is going to improve the quality of their life, but that they might be holding out on because of any reasons, right? So I hope that makes sense. And those are just a couple of small things that we can use in order to win even during these circumstances, right? So if you're just getting started in dropshipping, you could quite literally do everything like the exact way that we run it in our system and just sell outside of the United States, and none of this crap will really bother you at all, right? And you won't have experienced maybe the benefit of scaling to 100K days in the United States to know how massive and scalable the market is, to even have any doubts or any fear of missing out that you're not able to sell in those countries, right? And again, you can sell in the United States if you use some of these workarounds, and there's going to be so many more of these over time as we work with manufacturers and as they adapt and they adjust so that they can protect their business model, right? Which is allowing us to be able to sell products from them, right? That they manufacture, that they forward, that they ship out, right? Now, I know this video is going on for a while, so I'm just going to share my final thoughts here. I am predicting that there is going to be a strong kind of correction and almost a pullback, if you will, of all of these tariffs and these kind of dramatic measures in the next 90 days or so that either create further exemptions, temporary pauses, or permanent adjustments in and reductions in pricing with these tariffs and with these import fees, just because of the negative implications that are likely going to occur within the US economy in the short term, right? We don't know that this is going to be a net negative for the US economy in the long term, right? Like if you're dumb, and I'll just say that straight up, you will think, oh, if we get revenue in from these other countries, from these tariffs, that it's going to help us chip away at the desk. It's not quite how it works, right? And I will almost never get political here. And I want to make very clear that there's no political biases, affiliations here. It's just talking about how this impacts our business. And, what I think, and this is just my opinion here, is that, these are just aggressive negotiation tactics aimed to negotiate lower tariffs that other countries are charging on us and to promote an increase in U.S. manufacturing, right? I don't think anyone is opposed to bringing more jobs within the United States. I don't think anyone is opposed to having more products being manufactured here, but you just have to understand that, you can't get labor costs to the same rate as you can in other countries, right? And so if you bring U.S. manufacturing in here and it increases the cost significantly to the consumer, and then the consumer doesn't buy as much, and then the company suffers, then the company will do layoffs of employees that they hired because they, were trying to create new jobs or promote U.S. manufacturing, right? It just it doesn't work as well as it is, it's as in theory as it's preached, right? We wish it did, but it doesn't, right? It's going to, cause an increase in $5,000 the value for the American household for a year, right? And I care about that stuff, but it's not going to really impact me as much as it does the average household. But you get the point, right? If all of these companies that have all of these employees that rely on the supply chain being smooth and as lean as it was before, and getting to more of a free trade environment and economy, then it's stupid, right? The tariffs. Nobody wins when there's tariffs. So that being said, it's just negotiation tactics, right? And so I think that if we can work towards kind of a free trade environment where there's not a lot of government restrictions, there's not a lot of fees that go back and forth, and it lets each country, manufacture, produce, and distribute the things that they're good at doing and that they can do at a cost that's most lucrative, then I think that's good. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, right? So, again, at the end of the day, the hope is that we can somehow have someday have a free trade environment where there aren't strict tariff and government regulations, right? If we want our avocados from the place that makes the best avocados, then why do we want to charge them more to receive it, right? And to distribute it to our, our citizens. And then they just pass on the cost to them and it costs more, right? So anyways, I'm kind of looking forward and I'm excited to seeing how this plays out in the next couple of months, because I have a really, 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 really strong feeling that this is going to hit everyone like a truck hitting a pedestrian on the sidewalk. But then over the course of the next quarter, maybe the next 2 quarters, there's going to be significant, negotiations, pullbacks, and therefore kind of alleviations on some of these consequences. And by the time that comes, everyone will have already moved on to, some other business model. They would have given up on this. They pivoted, they did something else. And it's very unlikely that they're going to come back to it, because people are soft these days. They don't know how to face adversity or overcome challenges. Even if it's as simple as, just temporarily, here's an idea, not selling to the United States while we figure out how to navigate these with our sourcing agent connections, our manufacturing connections, our 3PL connections, etc. Right? So I hope this video is valuable to you. If you want more personalized help on how to navigate these tariffs and how to scale the hell out of an e-commerce brand and do this full time and be able to actually genuinely travel and have money being made while you sleep, and granted, putting in the time, putting in the work up front in order to be able to reap those benefits, like I just did this past 5 days. I was with my aunt and my cousin in Naples, Florida. We were golfing, we were playing pickleball, we were going to the beach, we were having nice dinners. And I probably worked an hour each day and was making just as much as the previous week where I was working 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day, right? So if you want to be able to experience that like I have and like I've helped so many people do, then feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. You can DM me a keyword like DropSkale or e-commerce, just so that you can, kind of make your way through the noise so that I can see that you're interested in getting help. And I would love to connect with you and see how me and my team can help you, and you can join our inner circle of e-commerce killers that are mostly doing this full time, right? So other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already left a thumbs up, what are you doing? Come on, help a boy out. Go, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. Shoot me a DM on Instagram if you need any more help. And I really, really, really look forward to seeing you navigate these tariffs and come out better on the other side. And I hope to see a message from you on Instagram in 90 days saying, hey, Kyle, I made it through these tariffs. I'm doing 100K a month in revenue now, 15, 20K a month in profit. And, whether you're selling in the US or outside of the US, keep me updated. I love seeing those wins. I love seeing how some of this stuff helps you guys. And if you don't have a brand, and if you're not looking to get into e-commerce for whatever reason, share it with a friend who is and who does have a brand, so that they can know how to navigate these things without freaking out, without panicking, keeping it calm and cool and controlled. All right. So with that being said, I will see you in the next video.